Come and shoot the breeze with myself and guests as we deep dive into some topics that may just pin your eyelids right back. So welcome everyone to another series of Shoot the Breeze with myself, Mandy Horton. And today's guest we have Sarah Brewer. Sarah is was a her career was in nursing, and Sarah was one of the ladies who was mandated out of her career through the COVID era. And today we're going to talk a bit about that and how that all went down, the repercussions from that as an ongoing, if there's anything that's sort of still floating from that, but mainly in around that story. But welcome, Sarah, and thank you for coming in and speaking with us today.
Thank you, Mandy, for the opportunity. Honestly, I feel really humbled and privileged to be here.
Thank you.
And quite a ride, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. And we all know, I mean, we're talking about the trauma and the grief and everything that's still sitting around from that era. And I see that we've sort of come to a space now where people are feeling a bit more freedom to be able to live life again the way they choose to live it. And that's a beautiful thing to witness. It's a beautiful thing to feel, and seeing life being taken up again with everyone, in particular here in New Zealand. We've got our summer, and I see everyone out having fun and playing, and that's so what we're about. And I was looking at our Kiwi lifestyle, and it's such we love freedom. Like, we really are a freedom country. And I think all of us went into shock over this mandating and the whole era of that COVID time. But globally, we were seeing it, and it was such a shock. But the mandating, I think, was one of the biggest wows. like wow, you actually, and the bribing. So tell us about it in the industry itself, in the nursing sector and the health realm, because they're saying this is for your health, but how it was such a contradiction. It just blows my mind, and must been so mind-blowing for you in that space. But one of the things that was interesting to me, and this was very interesting, was when my dad was in hospital at that time, they were going around in the morning with the COVID injection to give to all the patients, and were asking each one of them, would you like this? And I just said to Dad, instructed him, you to say no, actually. Anyway, that's what kept happening every morning. Now, on the health side, the COVID health side was saying that if you have a sniffle, cough, or a cold of any sort, or you're not feeling well, don't go and get the injection. Yet here they are in hospitals handing it out to people. I mean, everyone in there's sick, aren't they? So then it was the shock of, my God, they're just going so against everything they're saying don't do. They're doing it right here blatantly. And when I was actually speaking with one of the nurses, I said, how did you find this, in the sense of when it was being offered before mandates, say? And she said, I said, I bet the older ones were probably, you older ones were the ones that were sort of in there because you trust the pharmaceutical, you trust the medicine. And she just sort of grinned, and I could see from her that, hang on a minute, no, that's not right. And I said, why? What was going on? She said, the young ones dived. They dived in. She said, us older ones were standing back going, hang on a minute, this isn't, I don't think I want this. And I was actually really shocked at that. I thought it would be absolutely the other way around. So I'll be quiet now and I'll let you carry on and talk, because it's just shocked me. Absolutely.
Yeah, look, Mandy, just to kind of tie off what you just said about who, from an experiential perspective, was very much supportive and encouraging and pushing and all of those things around it. I have been part of Nurses for Freedom, which was a group that was set up for the nurses, and has extended out to healthcare assistants and midwives and all of that, that were mandated at varying different degrees. Some of us right from the beginning, and some of them after their first jab, because they reacted and then they didn't want more, and then those that refused boosters or those sorts of things. So there's a broad scope of us that are in there, but particularly the we had a gathering, a hui, 2022, and there were about 60 to 70 nurses and some midwives there. And what I observed, because I'm a bit of a numbers girl, I like looking at that sort of thing, there were more in the kind of, from an experience perspective, it was those with more years of experience that had said no. And just in the 40-year plus experience group, and there were 18 or 19 nurses and maybe a midwife in there. There was nearly 1,000 years of nursing experience just in that group alone. And I think it comes, for me, I mean, I was 21 years nursing. It was a career that I've wanted since I was 7. In fact, I remember a letter that Dad wrote me. He was like, if ever there was a model for a nurse, you're it, Blondie. Always the first to arrive with a Band-Aid, or, that sort of kind of caring way about me. And it's still there now. So I had been, nursing for 21 years. And in that, I wasn't trained predominantly in the hospital system, like the sort of 30 plus years of experience were hospital trained, and we've moved now towards the university polytech training with hospital experience through practicum and that environment. So we've got this delicate balance between the book smarts and the theory versus the practical side of it. And I think that we've got to work with that in a different way now. I'm a big believer in book smarts doesn't give you street smarts. You can spout off any definition or, method or whatever from a book, but if it doesn't actually play out in real life and in practice, then it has no benefit. And there's a lot around the observational skills and that hands-on practice that is lacking, for a better word. And I don't think, and from a staffing perspective too, we've lost that whole nurses were on the ground and working and learning and getting paid and all that sort of stuff. And I don't think we need to go right back to that, but I think that there are ways forward in supporting the staffing levels, but also to look at that training. And it's been really interesting, some of the insights that I've gained just since no longer clinically nursing, I guess. I see myself now with an opportunity to kind of compassionately nurse the country back somehow, because we've got to. There's just been so much hurt and so much destruction and so much division and so much pain and suffering inflicted, partly from people dictating to us, but also pain and suffering through our own choices and our own lack of personal responsibility for the choices that we've made, those sorts of things. It's broad, it's massive. And the post-traumatic stress of the whole um, the whole events of the last 3 years, and some are more open to receiving that and seeing that and holding that as it is, whereas others are just
Trying
very
to
much
sort of brush it away, and pretend like it's not there and get on with life. I know.
yeah, I think there
Yeah.
is that whole like, oh, we're just going to go back to normal. It's like, no, we're not. We're never going back to normal like it was ever again. Like there's so much that has happened in that time. And a big thing for me was the similarities to history and how people were so closed to seeing that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of yellow star similarities in
Yeah.
how we were treated and separated and divided. And
Mm.
it
And
just,
yeah, and any comment like that just brought up, whoa, like there was so much that was just explosive in that time. Anything you said, oh God, it was just you just I got to a point where I just zipped up, stood back, and just observed. It was like I can't be bothered with it anymore. It was too much. It's an overload of everything, and the overload of sensory, mind
mm,
information. It was just huge. Actually,
yeah, it
yeah.
was, it's been really intense and really full on. And I've been pretty outspoken from the get go, really.
Mm,
Um, Particularly like from late 2020,
yeah,
and very putting things out on my Facebook page, and trying to have conversations with people, and it's come at great cost. I've lost connections with some family members, and um, you know connected, but it's different.
yeah, yeah,
It doesn't flow as easily. It's like there's this the elephant in the room. No
yeah,
one really wants to talk about it. No one really, everyone wants to just carry on.
yeah.
And I think that's all well and good, but we actually just need to kind of
Hear it.
you just
Hey,
need to open it up and
yeah,
just like, let's have the conversations. I'm the first to admit that there are some conversations I could have handled differently,
yeah,
but you don't know what you don't know at the time, and you're doing the best with the circumstances that you're in.
absolutely.
um and 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 also, I guess I've got to a place where I um observe and recognize now that what I say is me, and I'm not afraid now to hide who I am, to speak what's there for me from my heart, with the
Yeah,
best of intentions. Like, it's not about making people right or wrong. There is
no,
no right or wrong in this situation. We did what we could with the knowledge and information, with where we were at in
mm,
our life, and all of that sort of stuff. I was in a position, you know, when I was faced with the mandates, which I knew were coming, as a single mum, to sit and go, shit, um, a lot at stake. That financial security, the all of that stuff, which were concerns raised by family, obviously, because they have the concern for welfare and well-being and all of that sort of stuff. But I also sat and went, but every fiber in my being says this is not okay. I don't feel that it's safe and effective like it was marketed to be, because looking further afield to um, Israel, the States, and the UK, where these treatments had been rolled out ahead, and the information that was coming through from there clearly showed that they weren't what they were sold to us as, yet that information wasn't available, or it was very difficult. It certainly wasn't shown in the mainstream, and it certainly wasn't provided, from what I understand, by those that were administering. You're right. And to me, as a nurse, I sat and go, how is this informed consent? And that was a big thing for me. And the risks of having the jab far outweighed the benefits. I didn't want my children to potentially discover mum unresponsive or whatever, and that might be catastrophizing, and that might be the worst case scenario, and it might be all of these things. But that was my choice, and it, and based on my information and the research that I had done, the thing that probably I still have a degree of anger about is that we should have never have been put in this situation to make that choice. So anyone that says you had a choice, well, it was Hobson's choice. It was not.
Exactly. And
it was gun to the head, over a barrel.
Yeah.
It was a Hobson's choice. And as Health and Disability Code of Rights, your choice should be free from coercion and free from discrimination and, free from all of these things. And it should be a fully informed decision. It should be one where, we have a right to respect. And we weren't given that.
No, not at all. And I think, I I sort of, think about this a bit, and still, we still keep reflecting in, don't we, over time and with certain different people and conversation and all of that. But I think the one thing that my family did not understand, or my friends that were putting their arm out, was the deep trauma within me of them dying. Like you being a nurse, me being in the health arena as well, in the sense of helping, assisting people into wellness. It was this freaking out of, I can't do anything to save their life. No. It's like watching them drown. And you can't go to them, you can't do anything about it. And that for me was one of the most hardest things to do. It was so hard to be just shunned out and stopped and not allowed to. I couldn't get my head around that. All my heart, it hurt me a lot. What I also don't know is that I think for people that got their out, in different degrees too, there's different trauma that goes with that. I know a lot of them that were sitting in those rooms getting their arm out and they were bawling their eyes out. And I'm like, well, why? What were you doing that for then?
I know. But moreover, what were the people that were administering it to those people that clearly did not want to be, were there against their free will?
Yeah.
That totally. Just, to me, made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
And just going back to what you said about, your family members and stuff that put their arm out, sitting in that place of, well, nothing's that general, like, okay, well, how long have we got now?
Yeah, exactly. And I put together a reunion group with girls that I went to school with that have been my friends since, for 60 odd years, some of them. And they all got their arm out and I freaked out, and I'm like, well, okay, I don't know how much time I've got with you now. So we're going to have weekends where we get together and share time. We have to make that happen, because I was scared for them. For me, my time that I won't have with them. It's shit, actually. Isn't it?
It is. It's so shit. And it is. It's so heartbreaking. And I think what almost makes it harder is that if something was to happen and we would even suggest or consider, insinuate that, well, you compromised your immune system, or you've put something in your body that not supposed to be there.
Exactly.
That absolutely wasn't designed for what they advertised it for. It was the worst false advertising campaign I mean, it
exactly.
was a propaganda campaign, and it was absolutely
The blatant lying.
mortifying. There were so many similarities to history around it when you look back and
Yeah.
reflect on it. And I sit and go, how are people so
Blind to it.
yeah, but then I also now sit and go, well, it must be so hard for them to be in that place now, potentially, because not everybody is, but to be in that place now where there is more information, there is more evidence that's come out. And, you know, how can you ignore the um the athletes, the fit young people
Yeah.
that are dying suddenly?
Yeah. Exactly.
And the unwillingness to join those dots and make those connections, to a point I can appreciate, because they're now sitting there with, like, as a sitting duck. You know, you just don't know. It had 9 pages of, you know, side effects, and they wanted it buried for 75 years.
Yeah.
You know, and it was only because the courts in the states forced the release of the documents that we now have a bigger picture, and an actual frightening picture
Yeah. It is.
of 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 the enormous impact that this has and is going to continue to build
Yeah.
on our already crumbling health system.
I know. And, you know, the insanity in that, actually, you know,
If it was really about health, could we afford to lose health professionals, Mandy?
exactly. And women and men that were passionate about that. Like actually very beautiful hearted people that were absolutely and still are very passionate about helping people. And
Mm.
I just, yeah, it was, oh God, so sickening. And the, you know, now what are they taking back the mandated? There was sort of talk of yes, and then I get no, so I don't know. Is that
It's
happening?
a delicate
Yes,
um,
that's what I heard.
topic. There are some places, I believe, that are taking back, and have been for quite a while. Te Whatu Ora took an exponentially ridiculous amount of time to develop their policy from when the government dropped the mandates. And I put it like that because they said that, but really the DHBs, Te Whatu Ora, are paid by the government. You know, are they really going to chop off the what's the saying? You know,
Yeah, the hand that
the
feeds.
mouth, the hand. Thank you, that one. The hand that feeds them, right?
Yeah,
Um, and within that policy, it's quite ambiguous. So until we're in a position to explore how that's going to play out. So there's a union that's come about through Nurses for Freedom, Nurses Professional Association New Zealand, I think it's called, that are, you know, supporting nurses. It's run by nurses, and they're supported through an organisation in Australia, I think. They are providing union support for any nurses. It's not, you know, we're all about
yeah,
including everybody,
yeah,
because what I think has also been quite confronting is how very obvious the likes of the Medical Council, the Nursing Council, NZNO were all very much lockstep in line with the government, and not actually there supporting the professionals that they were supposed, that I believe they're supposed to support and back.
yeah.
And you don't need to look far, like the
No,
nurses and, you know, doctors that had their registrations and things challenged. It's
Yeah. And I mean, you know, I heard through another nurse in a different health sector, but knows a lot of the ambos and all that,
Mhm.
that there were 9 deaths just here in our town, in the health sector. So nurses, doctors, I suppose, I'm not sure exactly, who, within 24 hours or right on the spot. And yet we never heard anything about that. It
I
was all
know.
told to be very quiet, shut up, don't say
Yeah.
anything. And the fear that must have been for somebody who's, say, mortgaged to the hilt, that
Mm.
job is keeping them alive and surviving,
Yeah.
to be put in the situation of choosing that, and then knowing that this has already happened too to some of their colleagues.
Yeah.
What the hell, the terror that must have been going through some of them in that time of actually accepting that, okay, I have to take this thing,
Mm.
um, and feeling like that they had no other option. Their
Yeah.
children wouldn't have been fed, all of those things, particularly mums who are nursing on their own with children on their own, those sorts of things. I mean, it was just horrid and so
It's so cruel, and it's actually abhorrent.
cruel.
Like
Yeah,
it's actually abhorrent. I can't even begin to imagine how the colleagues of those people that died must have felt,
I know.
um, and the heartbreak for the families, and but the crickets, like
Yes,
literal crickets, the fact that this information is available, but unless you're willing to receive it and to hold what ramifications there are and the weight of it, you're
yeah,
not going to go searching for that information,
no,
Mandy.
no,
Like, and that's a conversation I've had with a few friends around it all, is that it's almost like the information's out there, but it's out there for those that are already aware of it, as
yeah,
opposed to being out there in the mainstream.
yeah,
And I guess it just speaks to the premeditation of the whole thing,
absolutely,
you
absolutely.
know,
And the
and the
evidence,
money that must have
yeah,
changed hands, and the backhanders
yeah,
and underarm bowling, and all of it
yeah,
is just
yeah.
oh,
So corrupt, eh? I know.
so
And
corrupt
to
and
to
sickening.
to take through from that scenario I was just giving you about them accepting it because that's what I have to do, knowing the
Mm.
colleagues that this had happened to them, and then also knowing that others were being administered, having that administered, and then seeing the repercussions of that coming into the hospital and into their health
Yes.
sectors, knowing that, oh my God, this seems to be something that's occurring a lot now with people. Surely
Mm.
that's only started since these things are being put in the arm. So,
Mm.
working in that industry, it would have been very difficult to, I'm wondering about the guilt levels and
Yes.
the shame and the,
The,
the blame even that
mm.
a lot of people are carrying from that time in respect to that type of scenario.
Absolutely. I think the psychological implications of not just the initial lockdown and what's going on, and while we're still working it out and kind of trying to feel our way a little bit for some,
Yeah.
um, but then the ongoing psychological impacts, and like you've just said, the staff that are seeing, you know, increases in cancer,
Oh,
neurological
huge.
disorders, skin
Yeah.
issues, autoimmune stuff. the staff that are seeing that are making the connections, but then again sitting in this place of shit, I know what's causing this, but I can't speak up and I can't say anything because I can't afford to lose my job. I can't begin to unpack how they must be feeling
I know.
to be in that, once again, a different cycle of fear.
But that too, and the impact on their health, their body, their sleep,
Absolutely.
all of it. It's a massive thing, and it will ripple through for who knows how long, like
Decades.
generations
I think
probably.
it'll be generations, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think then the flip side of that is um the health professionals that are so dismissive
Mm,
and gaslight and provide, oh, it's just anxiety.
yeah.
Oh, it's just this, or oh, it's just that. It's like, when are you going to grow a pair and stand in your power as a medical professional who declared under the Hippocratic Oath to first do no harm,
Yeah.
actually stand up and advocate for the people in front of you?
Yeah. I know.
Which just,
Wild, eh? That's
it's,
sort of that I can't. I mean, I sort of understand the weakness, but I
yeah.
can't get the weakness. It's just something that is
Mm.
not in me, and there is no way. And I
Mm.
just can't understand people that allow that, and the feelings of guilt and shame they must have is just going to be huge. They will make themselves ill through
Well,
it,
I think
you
they
know?
already are,
Yeah.
like they, aside from potentially, like, let's actually put it out there for some of the health professionals, potentially having put their arm out, because at
Yes.
the end of last year we found out 11,000 exemptions were granted in
Yeah.
the health arena. So if it was like, oh well, you're in the club but you're not,
Yeah.
who decides that? Who
Exactly.
actually
Right.
says that that's okay?
Yeah.
We'll let you, not, because we can't afford to lose your skill set, but
Mm,
you're okay to lose thousands of nurses
mm,
and hundreds and, thousands of doctors as well, probably. But we're never going to get the real accurate numbers of that
no.
either, because
No.
when certainly Nurses for Freedom sent out OIAs to DHBs to get numbers of nurses and healthcare assistants and people that were terminated because of the mandates, and that process has just is
No.
flawed, because
Yeah.
there's like, you can get a rough idea but you're never going to get an accurate picture, because there were
Oh, that.
some that were
Yeah.
close to retirement and chose to retire early. There were some that quit because it was obviously very
Right. Yeah.
stressful. All
Yeah.
of that, like, you're not going to get a full picture of exactly how many were lost with those initial mandates, and then obviously that number's probably growing because people have woken up to what it is actually, or they've sadly and devastatingly been harmed by the jab,
Yeah.
um, and unable to work,
And getting no support through that either,
and
like
getting no support.
blatantly
Yeah,
just shut off and shut away and down. And oh my God,
yeah.
that's
There's
like,
just so many levels of wrong,
God,
Mandy,
yeah.
and really, yeah, really, and I can't take credit for this because it was given to me by a friend, but very much highlighted that this is a moral and ethical pandemic. We can't sit, you know, I sleep okay at night. My conscience is clear. I can't say that it's been easy some nights. It's incredibly stressful.
Yeah, so there is, and a lack of support as such. But the other
And
thing too,
acknowledgement as
yes,
well.
yes. And what I'm finding is, even though, like, are you seeing a lot of people that are waking up now, becoming more aware, um, that but still haven't actually given an apology to you? Like, do you feel like you want apology and acknowledgement that, you know, in respect to just how there was the concern around them, you know, and like, is there anybody that's acknowledged to you that, look, thank you for your caring and all of that, and even though I'm sorry I didn't get it, and you know, any of that?
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? I have had some um, beautiful words from my parents.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
but as for friends who've sort of dropped off um, or distanced, and siblings, no. And that's been a real process as to whether you open up the conversation or, you know, so there's that. I honestly couldn't say if there is an increased awareness or an awakening to a point of even being receptive to have the conversation. And I think,
okay, yeah,
you know, that whole, you know, I just now hold a space of acceptance and love,
yeah, for sure.
um, and have probably resigned myself that you're probably not going to get an apology,
So,
potentially not going to get an apology or much acknowledgement. Um, it just depends on where they're at in their process of growth and
right,
whether they've accepted, you know, the choices that they made, given, you know, where they stood at the time and where things are now and what's changed, and whether they've had a personal experience that's close enough to them, that's affected them or made them connect the relationship between arm out and illness or death
right.
or whatever,
So,
which is tricky.
so you don't really know whether they've actually got the full picture yet or not. Is
No,
that
because they
the thing?
haven't really been
Right,
open to having a conversation or asked questions of me,
right. So,
or necessarily even acknowledged, you know, some of the things that I've done since my nursing career, you know, since I was mandated. You know, I haven't just sat in the well, definitely sat in the shadows, and I've definitely
mm,
sat in the kind of grief and processing it all,
yeah,
but working towards building something new um, hasn't really been discussed or inquired about either. And
yeah,
that's, you know, I'm just like, do you know what? It is what it is. I've just got a bit of a place of, if you're not ready to have the conversation or you're not open to hearing
yeah.
where, you know, where I'm at or what's been going on, or inquire, you know, or just asking, hey, how's it
Mm.
going, or what are you up to, or I saw this on Facebook, and you know, or I saw this on whatever and that looks interesting, or, you know, like there's just, it's not been a lot of that, certainly from, you know, friends that, you know, pre 2020.
I think people are not very good at admitting they might have been wrong in certain areas or wrong totally
Nobody,
wrong, you know,
yeah,
and
nobody wants to do that.
apologizing in any way for that sort of thing. But I think I was lucky with my daughter. We did fall out, but we've come back, and we didn't completely fall out. We always kept contact and made sure that we were going to somehow repair this. But
Mm,
she was definitely on that side of the fence, and I was definitely on this one. And there was no way that we could bring any sort of information, or I could in any way. She was
mm,
not open to it. Came with me though to see River of Freedom,
mm,
and absolutely came out of there saying how weak the government was, and that she didn't know any of that because she was on the mainstream media side of the deal.
mm,
And and I just was so thankful that actually you came and watched that with me, and you actually see now the real story of what was behind the sit-in in Wellington. You know, it wasn't
mm,
about being anti-vaxxers. That wasn't the thing at all. And that's what everyone kept
mm,
bringing back into. Oh, they're just all these anti-vaxxers and conspiracy nuts, and you know, and I think even now, she knows that the injection was harmful, but she doesn't know that what was actually in it. It's
Mm,
like not, I don't think, information she has, and
mm,
I'm not willing to go there either. Yeah, we're just going to leave it as it is. And she keeps saying, well, at least we're okay, you know? So
yeah,
just fingers crossed, basically, that that continues to be the thing.
yeah, absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
pleased to hear.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting one, Mandy, because it is that um yeah, nobody really wants to admit that they're wrong or that they jumped before they had more information, or that they just
Mm.
jumped because it was the right thing to do, or it
Yeah.
was what the government said, um
It's
or I think the other thing that was deeply concerning was how they very much was like, do it to protect your whānau, do it to protect your grandparents, do it to, well, when have we used our children as shields?
yes, absolutely.
Like the whole way that they went about manipulating and coercing on so many different levels, and I mean, the bribery,
I
you
know,
know,
I can't believe
it
that.
was just
It
win
was
a prize
laughable.
of this or whatever, and you're just like, how did that not make a few more people go,
Yeah,
if
for sure, eh?
bribe us, or they have, encourage people to get it? Is it really, yes, is it really what it's supposed to be, or is this
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, yeah,
It's
oh,
weird though, eh? Because like my daughter, for instance, she's very much into information. She has to go down all the rabbit holes to find out whether that's fact. Is that fact? Is that
mm,
fact? And
mm,
nothing with that. Absolutely nothing. Just took it as face value that this was what we were meant to be doing, and that I have to do this to protect my family
yeah,
and myself, and truly believe that. And in that, I love that part of her, that she was so strong about, this has to be for everyone. Like, I've got to do this for everyone, you know.
mm,
And I
mm,
love that part. But yeah,
mm.
anyway. So
So interesting. I
so
think
interesting.
the other, what was I going to say? There's something that came through. Um, no, it's gone.
So with the lockdown and things, Sarah, you obviously were out of your job for that moment in time, and you had
Oh,
time to do more, didn't you, in respect to reflection and self, and your poetry came
uh,
play also.
yeah, it did.
Right?
Um, pardon?
Your writing and poetry. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the lockdowns and things, that it was the only lockdown. So I was stood down in that last lengthy lockdown in the August before the
Right.
mandates came in,
Yeah.
um, because I was the only unvaccinated staff member, I believe, on the floor. And I worked from home in a limited capacity, and then spent a lot of time getting familiar with the Health and Disability, well, not Health and Disability, Employment Relations Act, and how to hold the line for as long as possible, and
Right.
all of that sort of stuff. Um, and then obviously got terminated at the beginning of December. And once I'd sort of worked through the space of what the hell just happened,
Yeah.
um, how did we get here, and the anger and the frustration and the grief and all of the feelings around it, when something that you've wanted all your life is
Mm,
taken away, forced away from you,
yeah.
because you believe that you should have a choice and a say in what goes into your body, and um, and the information should be available to make
Mm,
that a very empowered choice. Um, Once I worked through that, I connected with other like-minded people. A beautiful nurse down in the Wairarapa, Deborah, set up Nurses for Freedom, and connected in there, which was a hugely cathartic, healing place to be, because you were no longer
yeah,
alone.
you were being heard and seen.
You were being heard. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And honored and recognized for the choice and all of that sort of stuff. And not that it was ever about honor or recognition or anything like that. It was just, it was my choice. This is what I'm doing for me. And
but it still felt like, because we were excluded so much, it felt like a very lonely trip, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I think as well, like the dismissal of your sharing of some information from a place of love and compassion and caring and wanting to protect your loved ones and your friends, because the information that I shared was never personally directed at anybody. It was to sow a seed, to potentially invite people to consider a different way, to consider that, you know what, the government doesn't actually have your best interests at heart. To consider that there's more information available out there if you want to search, and you know, all of that sort of stuff. So things heated up, obviously, because the teachers' mandates the police and the Defence Force, their court case was successful and their mandates were dropped and recognised as illegal, which was like, yes, this surely has to set a precedent that every other mandate was illegal and the mandates are going to drop for everybody. No, that's not how it worked. It's not how it played out. The teachers' mandates were the next ones to be dropped, I think. And then nurses, because I guess from our heart space, we're compassionate and, you know, perhaps not as confrontational is not the right word.
I get what you're saying.
We've always, you know, we didn't sort of jump up probably as quickly. I mean, the NHS is a perfect example. They never mandated in the UK because all of them said, if you mandate, we're all walking. The unity over there was a force to be reckoned with. Had that happened in New Zealand, then the government would have had to back down, because an already crumbling health system, because it has been, you know, the system's been compromised and staffing has always been an issue for my entire career. That would have, the system would have completely imploded if they had then pursued the mandates and lost every staff. So that unity didn't happen, which was to our detriment. And so there were protests or stands that were initiated through Nurses for Freedom, and I was part of the first one we did. I think was around July 22, out in Middlemore, and I was interviewed by Free NZ Media, Liz Gunn, which was incredible. Was also again an opportunity to be heard and seen. Again, not from a place of ego, just from a place of wanting your story to be out there, but also to highlight the concerning factors and the concerning points around the decision and how it occurred, and highlighting the Health and Disability Code of Rights, and, you know, highlighting the fact that the similarities from history to now, and the division, and, you know, the two classes of citizens and all of that stuff was valuable. And I was invited to potentially share some words by a New Zealand writer, Mary Hobbs, who writes for the Daily Telegraph. And from that, she sowed a seed in me, and I have since written a few poems that share a bit of a story. They share my story, but certainly people I've shared it with have gone, wow, that really resonated with me. I've, see some similarities and that sort of thing. And it's just a different platform to get a message across in a different way.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Would you like to share one with us?
Yeah, I can. I can. I guess it makes sense to just share the first poem really that started it. And it's my story. I think it's probably similar to others as well, because I know that plenty of people have found themselves through the COVID experience and era waking up to their full potential, I guess, and recognizing that just because it's always been that way doesn't mean it always has to be that way, and we can do things differently, and we don't have to be a slave to the machine, and we can, create amazing things. And I think that's one thing that I have got to a place now and really opened up and received it, in terms of connecting with like yourself and others, and seeing the level of creativity that has come about as a result of this. And the River of Freedom is a great example. We Came Here for Freedom, which is a 2-part documentary series around the occupation of Wellington, as well as another thing, The River of Lies, which is Billy Tekaheka's the New Zealand Scamdemic doco series, and putting that all together with a huge amount of fact-based and evidence. And watching that was interesting because it had quite a few like, oh yeah, that happened. So it's quite interesting what we have forgotten or pushed away, and like those sorts of things. And then certainly amazing songs and raps and all sorts of things have come about because of it. It's just opened up this creative flow.
Lots of people found new purposes and are still unfolding that, which has been lovely. I think it's definitely created a lot of newness, which is, I think, really awesome.
Yes. Yeah, it has. So, soul transformation. How did we get here? I ask from my soul. I'm hard pressed to find one who did it for pay. So I'll ask you again. How did we get here, my friend? Because there's many a time it's near sent us round the bend. For me, I am certain I answered a call from so deep. My 7-year-old self knew this career was meant for me. To care and to heal, to soothe and to feel, to guide and support from critical thought. What's going on here when something doesn't seem right? We search for the answers, and we'll put up a fight for the patients, for the families, for the children, and all who are vulnerable. It's just what we do. So how did we get here, I ask from my soul? Have we really and truly lost sight of our role? The world is in chaos. Humanity is hurting. Big Pharma has captured the essence of health and left us with sickness in favour of wealth. Are we really going to sit back and watch from afar as the ambulance is crushed at the base of a cliff from a myriad of symptoms not addressed at the core? Does the thought of the system not leave you feeling quite sore? So I'll ask you again, how did we get here, my friend? Because I know for certain my heart and my soul say this is not how it ends. The strength lies within us to claim back what's ours. Our health forms part of our abundant wealth. And for some, it's been taken through coercion and fear, while others, unwilling to see or to hear, have swallowed the pills, just like hook, line, and sinker, the reality of which gives me nothing but chills. The corruption, the greed, the lies and deceit, the programming roots run incredibly deep. It all can be seen clearly when open and willing to carry the load, while knowing its weight may confront you quite dearly. But trust it we must as we embark on this test of life's many lessons. This one, quite frankly, could be one of the very best. So where to from here, I ask from my soul? How do we grow through, move on, and ascend out of this hole? For now is the hour. We all have the power. Stop feeding your ego and set yourselves free. Refocus your lens on the change you wish to see. It's time to step firmly outside of the box. Claim your strength from within and hold tight onto love. With eternal support from all that's above, the world's transformation is now in full swing.
That is absolutely beautiful. That's so many will resonate with that. Absolutely. That's great,
Yeah.
Sarah. That's really, really great. And so, it sort of opened up something within you, didn't it? This whole process that you've been in, and it has, I mean, we know this for many, many people, it's opened up new avenues, new purposes have come into play, like we were saying, and many new ventures started and adventures started. People have come out of that time going, okay, anything can happen at any time, and let's start living life again and make the most of what we have, appreciating more about their families and their time. Really, it's more about the time that we have. And so lots has changed for sure. It's not, the normal's not there anymore, what we perceived as normal before. I sometimes look back into, I think when I grew up was the best time to grow up on the planet, and definitely in New Zealand. And I am so, so glad that I had that time. And I see the change for my children now and my grandchildren in particular. And there's a part of me that gets a little sad, but then I'm also seeing the shift that's happening throughout this time now and with humanity and with the planet. And I just know that they will actually be able to live in the best time that we will ever know, I think. And this has been the biggest part of history that I know I will ever be a part of and maybe ever been a part of. And I think we all in some way need to celebrate that, as much as we know we've been through that trauma, but celebrate where we are now and celebrate the insights we have and the wisdom that's come through from that, because many, many things opened up for us all that were positive, great things. And I see this new world being built out of that.
Absolutely.
So where for you now, where are you in this now? You're now sort of working into the healing industry in a different way. Yeah. So tell us all about that and what's your plans? Well, without giving too much away.
Yeah, thanks. Look, Mandy, I want to agree with you. You're right. There has been, as hard and traumatic and stressful and brutal as this has been, it absolutely is a significant part of New Zealand history that will shape generations to come, right? And yeah, I guess it's very much the death of the old, right? It's the old way of doing things that has made way for the rise of the phoenix out of the ashes. Let's use all the cliches, the birth of this new world that we're creating in a space of love and free of judgment and openness to doing things differently and
Yes.
working together in a different way that's collaborating with each other and celebrating people's skills and gifts and using them to build something that's just so much more beautiful, and getting out of the rat race,
Yeah.
and breaking down and releasing all of the old ways of doing things and opening up for a pathway that's a lot more flowing and a lot more peaceful if you choose to flow with it, and if you choose
Yeah.
to follow your heart rather than your monkey mind.
Mm.
And I mean, it's always going to be a work in progress, right?
Absolutely.
Nobody, we're all perfectly imperfect humans that are just having this experience on Earth. And yeah, certainly for me, it's opened up a channel where I've connected very much to who I am. I've found myself again, and have surrendered a lot to just, this is where I'm meant to be. I don't necessarily have to have all of the answers right now, and that's okay. I am using tools and skills from my nursing, in terms of holding space for people to share. I do aromatherapy massage. So I have a lived, learned experience from using essential oils to support our emotional and overall health and well-being. Because I think as well, that's something that we've lost sight of, is that most Western medicine, big pharma stuff, was founded on the constituents and plants.
Yeah, the natural. Yeah.
The natural world. So always having been a little bit more natural and complementary therapy inclined, but opening up that possibility to looking at herbal medicine is something that I'm quite excited to explore as well. But the aromatherapy massage is definitely something I feel like my nursing career lends itself quite well to, still healing, using my hands, specific aromatherapy blends depending on what the need is, and just allowing people to have some space to heal themselves, because if we do provide that environment, if we do support and take responsibility for creating that, then we can actually heal ourselves. That's with very little intervention. So there's that part of it. Building a holistic health business, I guess, is where I see it at the moment, and there's different sort of avenues there, and wanting to explore where I take my poetry in terms of publishing it or putting it to some imagery with some music. I don't know, I'm very kind of just open to where things might go. Certainly have found that my path is, the obstacles are falling away, when you're heading in the right direction and you're following your heart's call and your soul's call. The obstacles are only there if you put them there, really. Because at the end of the day, that's what we've always done. We've always put these blocks and these self-limiting beliefs in place, when in actual fact we can achieve so much more than what we've been told, programmed, or led to believe. So I'm just sitting in this place of quiet excitement for what could come, and I've been blessed with some incredible connections with amazing people that bring a different skill set and the support, and I think as well that unconditional kind of love and acceptance for who you are. All of you, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the everything.
That's right. And I think and seeing what's sort of breaking open now. It's sort of like the burn off in Aussie, where they burn off and then all the new growth comes through. This is what I'm seeing. It's like all this new growth coming through,
Yeah.
and the potentials that are in that, and the opportunities that are showing up. And
Mm,
if there's one thing we know, humanity, or people, human is are very resourceful. We'll always kick back in and go, okay, so that happened, now
mm,
what?
yeah.
Once we get our head around it. And I think too, this has been a huge type of movement out of the hive mind.
Mm,
When you look back and you see how many just went into that mental and said, okay, that's what I'm doing, and
mm,
followed the instruction without actually thinking for self and feeling self. uh,
mm,
there's a lot of them are waking up to that fact that actually I just went with what I was told to do. So
mm,
there's that whole coming out of the hive mind and starting to really think for themselves in respect to where they want to go, what their life really wants to be. And a lot of them living in lockdown too, realizing that they had all this time with their family for the first time in many years or ever, that they actually all spent time as a family and loved it,
yeah.
actually. And
Yeah.
so therefore that changed the ideal around how I want to live my life in respect to 9 to 5. Do I want to do that? Do I want to keep doing that
Yeah.
thing?
Mm,
So, lots more were created into being in their own businesses and creating their own flow, however that is, and
mm,
what that might be. So absolutely wonderful stuff. And hats off to you, for being able to, come back now into something that's going to really, I feel the passion within you with your poetry and, your healing work, because you are a healer in whatever way we want to look at that, you're a healer.
mm,
And applying that now into a new way of being for you is a huge thing, but it's a great thing too. In respect to it will just flow, like you say. So
yeah.
um,
Thank you.
all the very, very best, honestly, throughout time with everything that you're doing, and whatever else shows up too, because that's only the beginning. It's only the beginning of a whole new venture. And
Absolutely.
so yeah, just embracing that is a joyful ride.
Yeah.
So yeah, but thank
Yeah.
you for all you do, and for all that you did in the health sector as well. Your many years of nursing and aiding those who were unwell. That's a massive job.
It
And
was honestly, it was a privilege, Mandy. I felt incredibly honored to be able to be in that place, because people when they're sick are so vulnerable. So it's a very privileged place to be. And I do look back on my nursing career with fond memories for the most part. It was a hard job, but
yeah,
um, but I loved it.
yeah,
Some days you just made a little difference, and other days you made a really big difference.
yeah, yeah. No,
And
beautiful.
yeah, I think it's just exciting to see what's going to grow from the darkness.
Absolutely, for sure. In many
Mm,
sectors too, like it's
yeah,
really just starting to take shape in some of them now. It's a beautiful thing. But
yeah.
again, thank you for coming in, and thank you for sharing your story. And even though you may not have known, um, in a lot of the people that were mandated, there was a huge amount of support. And I know you know that now, but in the
Mm,
time, I got how lonely it was for many of us, and
mm,
for you guys in particular, in the sense of being thrown out of your industry. I was lucky I worked from home anyway. So, but yeah, bit of a mish. But we,
yeah.
as we say, we're getting through that now.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that just speaks to the other beautiful thing that's come about, Mandy, from all of this is the new connections that have been made, because we've connected with people that we possibly would have never have connected with had things carried on the way that they did.
Mm, absolutely.
It's pulled people from all walks of life together. And I mean, that was certainly evident down in Wellington, and that
Exactly.
number 8 mentality that we had to
Yeah.
just get on with it. And, you know, they were throwing some like
Huge obstacle.
disturbing scenarios and situations in terms of the sprinklers and massive storms and all of that sort of stuff, but it didn't deter that. No, we're here for a reason, and we are here for
Absolutely.
the future of our country, for our children and our grandchildren, and what we want our country to look like.
Yeah.
And build a platform from there. And I think that, you know, there's a lot that can be reflected on in terms of going forward and the acceptance of others where they're at.
Yeah, all the new tribes and communities coming together it's brilliant. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's just going to continue to do that in mass. So yeah,
Absolutely.
beautiful, Sarah.
Oh,
Much love
thank
to
you.
you and your family and all of what you do.
And to you.
So thank you again.
Thanks so much, Mandy.
So welcome.